Good morning, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to your neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation. My name is Susanne Maziarz, and I have your announcements for the coming week. Spirit Choir meets on Monday nights from 7 to 9. If you'd like to join our choir, come talk to me. And note to choristers, our rehearsal tomorrow night is canceled. Talent night for October and November is also canceled. And instead, we'll have a karaoke party on the first Saturday of December, on December 2nd, hosted by Allison and video DJ Jojo, who's working our sound desk today. Hatha Yoga small group led by Christina will start October 4th on Wednesday evenings from 7:30 to 9. Classes will include postures, relaxation, and is suitable for aging bodies. Bring your own yoga mat, and you can talk to Christina after service for more info. Building your own theology class with Rev Pat. You'll meet Rev Pat today. She's our speaker. Beginning Sunday, October 8th from 1 to 2:30. More information in the Cappuccino room, or you can email Pat or talk to her directly after service today. The fundraising team are looking for people to help with canvassing the Danforth for donations from local businesses to support our biggest fundraiser of the year. Do we have someone making an announcement on this today? No, we don't. Okay, so the auction is happening the 11th of November, Saturday, November 11th, and we need some help. You can talk to Pat or John, who I don't think either are here today. Okie dokie, moving right along. Greeters Committee is seeking more greeters to welcome individuals arriving on Sunday mornings, and they also have the responsibility of passing the collection baskets during the service. Greeters always work in pairs and are scheduled on a rotating basis once or twice a month. It's a wonderful way to be in service to our community and help create the welcoming space we aspire to. If you are willing and interested to be a greeter, email Luann at shiplu@gmail.com. The C Committee, Social Environmental Action Committee, meets next, no wait, is that next Sunday? Yes. Thank you. Next Sunday after service. Meanwhile, join us on September 27th, that is Wednesday at noon. Join 5 First Nations from Northern Ontario calling on Premier Ford to end unwanted mining activity on their territories. You can talk to Nancy, who I saw, there's Nancy, or Kurt here in the front row about that action, or if you'd like to sing with Common Thread in the Streets, you can come talk to me, who will be singing at that action as well. Neighborhood Gallery presents Ravinder Ruprai's Circle and Lauren Renzetti's Meadow Meditations. The show is on until October 29th. All are welcome to come view. You can see it after service today in the upper galleries or come anytime during the week at your own leisure. Pastoral care. Do you know our contract minister, Rev Pat Trudeau, is available for short-term pastoral care. You can reach out to her on a confidential basis to discuss issues that you're seeking spiritual guidance on. To reach Rev Pat, you email her at minister@nuuc.ca. And next Sunday, our theme is Dancing with Xenophobia. Our speaker is Peter Marmrick. I'm Away, our musical guest will be Hopeful Phoenix, and our service weaver is Kurt Thompson.
To everyone assembled here and via Zoom, we welcome you to our Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation service. Thank you for joining us. My name is Allison Kabayama, and I will be your service weaver this morning. We start today's service by creating a sacred space, and I invite you to join me in grounding ourselves with a few deep breaths before reading our invocation. So let's breathe in and out. Again. We can project our invocation and read with me. Let us cast the circle of a chair space here. Let us cast the space of safety, a place of forgiveness, a place of love. If we want the world to change, we must craft in our space and in ourselves the seeds that grow a different kind of life, a life of graciousness, of creative intelligence, a place of life and spirit for ourselves and our families. Before we light our chalice, I would like to share the following reading about the UU chalice, written by Reverend Deborah Falk. She tells us, "A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built upon the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us." Today I've asked Nancy Vanderplatz to please come forward and light our chalice. We light this chalice to remember, to light the fire within our own hearts. Today, we gather in our spiritual home here and our personal homes for those of us joining via Zoom. Let us remember that all of these homes are located on the traditional land and territories of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Haudenosaunee nations. Indigenous peoples have been acknowledging the land at the start of gatherings, ceremonies, and events for time immemorial. Using and participating in a land acknowledgement is a way to recognize the enduring presence and resilience of Indigenous peoples. It is also a reminder that we are all accountable to these relationships. We recognize the historical and existing power dynamics between settlers and Indigenous peoples, as well as the obligations of settlers to redress it. I covenant to do my part to reconcile these imbalances. Good morning. Welcome. Our musical director is Susanne Maziarz, and our director of lifespan learning is Julia Thompson. Today we are supported by two members who generously donate their skills and time. Joe Strakowski is handling our sound desk, and Gordon Thorne is our Zoom tech extraordinaire. Our speaker is our new contract minister, Rev Pat Trudeau, as our new Minister of Pastoral Care and Adult Education. Rev Pat Trudeau's role at Neighborhood encompasses her commitment to deliver a once-a-month Sunday service message of inspiration, conduct rites of passage for members, to work closely with service weavers and the Sunday Service Planning Committee, to collaborate with the membership committee, and offer educational sessions on UU history and theology. So welcome and thank you, Pat. As UUs, we are open to many beliefs and learn from many traditions. We welcome all people looking for a spiritual community. If you are visiting in person for the first time, we welcome you especially, and we encourage you to stay after service for coffee time. Our services can and do vary from week to week, so we encourage you to sample several to get a better understanding for who we are. Our mission at Neighborhood is to empower spiritual growth and shared action for the care of our world. The theme for this congregational year is aspiration. The theme for September is covenant and community. And our theme for today is we covenant in love. As I considered today's theme, I could not help but relate the topic of covenant with a current and ongoing situation within my family. I think that we make a covenant with our family members, and in particular with our children. My close family member has been at the CAMH hospital since August 14th, and it is unsure how much longer he will remain there and how long his condition will last. It could be lifelong. The last 2 Sundays here, we sang Standing Stone, which says, I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I have been singing and hearing this refrain throughout these weeks and feel this is a reaffirmation of my covenant to my family member. I feel this way about this community as I make and uphold my commitments and feel how I am held and supported by others here. We will be talking about covenants today. and learning with the help of Rev Pat. Members of our Spiritual Life Committee will be affirmed during the time we usually reserve for joys and concerns. And a covenant will be shared between them and the members of this congregation. Here is an example of a covenant which was written by American Unitarian minister, essayist, playwright, hymn writer, and poet, James Villa Blake. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. UU Minister Victoria Safford ministers at White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church in St. Paul, Minnesota, and she tells us the following. When we welcome new people, we tell them, this is a congregation bound not by creed, but by covenant. Bound each to each and each to all in a freely chosen and life-sustaining interdependence. In a tradition so deeply steeped in individualism, this becomes a spiritual practice for each of us to ask, to what larger love, to what people, principles, values, and dreams shall we be committed? We ask again and again, how do I decide which beautiful, clumsy, and imperfect community will carry and hold my name, hand, and heart? The life of the Spirit is solitary, but our answers to these questions call us to speak, call us to live in the plural. Now it's time to greet your neighbors. After you've greeted a few neighbors, you might want to turn to the camera on the back wall and offer a greeting to those joining us virtually. No, it's okay. Thank you.
Version of Wake Now My Senses. Now we'll have a chance to sing it together. Please put some energy and spirit in your bodies, and we'll sing together hymn number 298. Wake now my senses. Giving, receiving, voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take us, your neighbor, both different and friend, praying and striving. Can we get the next slide, please? Okay, here we go. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take us, our neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving, their hardship to end. Wake now, my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted the privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now, my vision of bittersweet prayer. Brighten my path with radiant spirit. Rekindle my calling, recall who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our
Hello? So this is the time for all ages when I would like to invite the young and the young of heart to join me. Today we don't have any children. I know they called, they're going to be away today, but hopefully they'll be able to join us next week. Yeah, if they want to, they're in the wiggle room, some tiny children, but yeah. So, I want to start by saying we all make we have somebody. We all make promises, and some of these promises we're able to keep, but some promises for one reason or another we're just not able to. So I want to share a story that was written by 9-year-old Jaden for a school assignment on promises. And it's called The Baby Bird Who Would Break His Promises. There we are, there's his picture. This is the story of a baby bird who would always break his promises. He would break his promises all day and all night. He broke his promises so that he could do whatever he liked. One night, Mama Bird was about to eat dinner. She called out, "Come and get your dinner." "I'll be right there," said the youngest bird, but he just kept on doing what he was doing, which was having fun. Finally, when he came back to the nest, his mother said, "I think you've been ignoring me and breaking promises. There is no dinner left." That was a little bit drastic, but I didn't write the story. Okay. I have been ignoring you every time. I am very, very sorry. I hope you will forgive me, he said sadly. "Well, I am very disappointed that you ignored me, but I am glad you told the truth. So I think I might have saved you a plate of juicy worms and bugs." Mama brought them over to Baby Bird. They ate dinner together. So sometimes we're made like we feel like we make a promise under pressure. And I don't know if you've noticed, but in a lot of fairy tale slide? Good. A lot of fairy tales are like that. The main character makes a promise and then gets into a huge mess. They make a promise out of desperation. So in the slightly creepy picture there is a witch who is making a man promise to give her his firstborn child in exchange for one of the cabbages that is growing in her garden. Now, the man's wife is expecting, and she has this craving for these cabbages. And she's so desperate, and she's driving him crazy, and so he goes and tries to steal it, and the witch goes, aha! And so later, she takes their firstborn child and locks her up in a tall tower that she later escapes from. What is the name of the story? Yes, and the girl has very, very long hair. So in the second story, the princess is playing with her golden ball, and it falls into the pond, the royal pond. Don't say it yet until I'm finished describing it. I know how eager you are, but don't call it out. She's playing with her golden ball, and it drops into the pond, and then a frog agrees to fetch it. An enchanted frog agrees to fetch it for her. If she will let him hang out with her in the royal palace all day and all night. So out of desperation, the princess says, yes, I promise anything. And then there's consequences. So I guess in the end, everything worked out happily ever after, like in many fairy tales. But at the time, it was not fun for the princess. So what is the fairy tale? Yes, good. So sometimes as well, this is kind of a more difficult promise because I think we've probably all done this at one point or other in our lives. We make a promise to somebody who we really, really love, really care about, because we can imagine how happy they're going to feel, when we fulfill this promise to them. It happened to me with my kids more times than I care to remember. I remember one incident where I was going to take them on a fun outing, and they were so excited all week. And then the day of, I felt tired, and I felt as though I wasn't going to be any good to anybody. So I felt like I'm just going to have to break my promise. And I felt so bad. I felt like their trust in me had been broken. How am I ever going to fix this? I had let them down. So they didn't talk to me for quite a while, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to leave them their space. And then when they were ready, we sat down and talked about it, what we could do in the future. And the interesting thing was that yesterday when I was bouncing some ideas off my youngest daughter, who's now 20, she said, "Don't worry, Mom, I forgive you for any of the promises you broke. It's okay." So that was kind of nice. I wonder if anybody might want to share, like a promise that you might have made that you weren't able to keep. Okay, this is the first time I've done this, so. Steve?
My wonderful friend here and fellow bass, Gord, invited me to his men's group, and it was a nice time. I met 6 or 8 people, a pretty good time. And at the end of it, there was a huddle, and I said, "I'll be back." You think I have since? No.
Were you forgiven, or?
I don't know. I think that's what I'm going after right now.
All right, you keep doing that. Anybody else? Yes.
Well, I've... Could you turn down the mic a bit? Thanks. I've been divorced twice, and so in both cases, my wives and I, promised to love each other, and then things changed. And I always think of the line in Araya's poem, The Invitation, if you can be faithless and therefore true to yourself. Sometimes to be true to yourself means breaking a promise.
That's right. Well said. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right.
Nice. Thank you, Julia. I have spoken about covenants, which have been thought about and created elsewhere. We also have a number of covenants in place here at Neighborhood. For example, there is the covenant, which we each make when we officially join the congregation. That slide will come up. Our congregational covenant. As a member of Neighborhood, it's okay. Is it? Yes, there we go. I promise to craft a spiritual life, live our 8 principles, and share my time, money, and abilities to strengthen our congregation. You may not know it, but some of our committees also have covenants, including our board of directors. For example, the board created their own covenant last year and updated it again in May. This covenant, which we can see, is read aloud at the beginning of each board meeting, and we strive to uphold it, and it reads as follows. Oh, it's very small, but I'll read it out. I respect everyone's time and energy and covenant to show up for each board meeting informed and ready to do business. I shall endeavor to listen to others, keeping in mind that they have the best intentions. I shall remember that I serve a higher ideal, the concept of a beloved community, as well as the current and future members of the congregation. I will share our time together. I will allow space for everyone who wishes to speak. We will not engage in crosstalk. I will endeavor to help wherever I can and express my opinions openly. So today, in place of our time that we usually reserve for joys and concerns, we, the Congregation of Neighborhood, the members of this Congregation of Neighborhood, will be affirming our inaugural Spiritual Life Committee members. The soon-to-be affirmed members of the Spiritual Life Committee were those members of our community who were nominated by other congregational members and whom the board, ministerial consultant, and our pastoral care minister reviewed in accordance with the process approved by our congregation at our AGM on April 30th. Helen Armstrong, Gordon Klee, and Doug Crozier, along with Ray Barraclough, were identified to the community on July 12th as the candidates selected to form our inaugural SLC. You'll also hear that. That's a short form. Ray has since advised that she was unfortunately unable to assume this role. However, the board and ministers reconvened and determined that the remaining 3 members were well placed to move forward as a 3-person committee. I would like to invite Rev Pat to step forward now to help conduct the affirmation ceremony for the SLC members at this time. As president of the board of Neighborhood, I am honored to invite the 3 members nominated by the congregation and appointed by the board to become members of our inaugural SLC, to come forward to be affirmed in their work by the congregation. So Helen Armstrong, Gordon Klee, and Doug Crozier would you please come forward at this time to be recognized and affirmed?
Helen, Gordon, and Doug, you have been nominated by NUUC members to become our inaugural Spiritual Life Committee. We're so glad. And because you are good at collaboration and are big picture thinkers, you are gifted at thinking through complicated questions and at weighing all the factors that contribute to envisioning a path forward, even when and if imperfect. Are you willing and able to bring these important skills to our work, to your work as the SLC? Thank you.
Helen, Gordon, and Doug, we, members of Neighborhoods Board, understand the work of the Spiritual Life Committee, in part, to inform, advise, and consult with the board in the ability of our ministries to respond to the mission of neighborhood. Are you comfortable accepting this responsibility to assess and not to judge the work so many in the congregation are committed to doing well?
Helen, Gordon, and Doug, as NUUC's new half-time minister, I know I have much to learn about the needs of the congregation. Are you willing and able to offer me your insights and the insight of other members of this community into areas of mission fulfillment that I need to understand in order to serve our mission and all our members well? Thank you.
Helen, Gordon, and Doug, are you willing and able to draw upon the experience and expertise of other members of neighborhood when a question comes up that you may not have the expertise to answer?
Helen, Gordon, and Doug, are you willing and able to consider your work a conversation to be informed by the members and leaders, lay and professional, as NUUC, as well as the resources available through the CUC and the UUA?
Then, we invite the members of neighborhood to stand and affirm the appointment of Helen Armstrong, Gordon Klee, and Doug Crozier as members of Neighborhood's inaugural Spiritual Life Committee. We have a slide. Please speak the words projected above. We, the members of Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist Congregation, affirm the appointment of Helen Armstrong, Gordon Klee, and Doug Crozier as members of Neighborhood's inaugural Spiritual Life Committee. We trust that your work will be a conversation about how all of us can help bring to life our mission to empower spiritual growth and shared action for the care of our world. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. That's okay. We can do it together. No.
Thank you all for your commitment. Thank you all for your commitment to this congregation and its mission. And thank you, Doug, Helen, and Gordon, for saying yes. Bless you. Blessed be.
Please stay standing for our song. Next slide, please. Please take a moment to settle yourselves in your chairs. You can rest your hands on your lap and close your eyes if you like. We will do a meditation on breathing. You can sing or say the following words. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. As you deepen in quiet, you will hear two other voices layer in on top of this chant. But please continue to then breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. As I breathe in, I breathe in peace. As I breathe out, I breathe out love. As I breathe in, I breathe in peace. As I breathe out, I breathe out love. As I breathe in, I breathe in peace. As I breathe out, I breathe out love. As I breathe in, I breathe in peace. As I breathe out, I breathe out love. As I breathe in, I breathe in peace. As I breathe out, I breathe out love. As I breathe in, I breathe in peace. As I breathe out, I breathe out love. As I breathe in, I breathe in peace. As I breathe out, I breathe out love. In, breathe out, breathe
Come, come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. These are the exact words of Rumi. We sing, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. We sing it often. We say it often. And we sing these words. But here's the part that goes missing sometimes, not always, that gets left out is the next line. Come, even if you have broken your vow 100 times, come, yet again, come. Even if you have broken your vow, 100 times. Covenant is hard. We make mistakes, we mess up, we forget. Covenants are there to guide us back to our promises and commitments to one another so that we can keep moving forward rather than going back and rather than holding individual and institutional grudges. Individuals mess up, and so do congregations. We come back to the table and back to our vows. We need to know what covenant is and what role it plays in our congregational life so that we can always keep coming back. Covenants need to be not only crafted and given language, but they need to be lived, reviewed, communicated, and practiced. So much work goes into making a covenant, then we have to live it. Where does the term covenant come from? It is a word that always sounds biblical to me. A significant covenant in the Bible, often called the Mosaic covenant, is the one that God made with Israel. According to the Hebrew Bible, in Exodus 19, God told Moses that if Israel would uphold the condition to faithfully listen and obey, then God would uphold his end of the bargain, his end of covenant. I do not have time in this message to go back over the history of covenant in our heritage, and oh, do I ever want to. But suffice it to say that the oldest version used by our faith tradition goes back to the Cambridge platform of 1648, and it looks something like this. Oh, you had it, Joe. I know, sorry. No, that's okay. We dwell in the other one. That's it. You got it. You had it.
Love is the honor. The next one.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, that's all right. I'll read it. Love is it goes. we dwell in imperfection. It's actually the one that's slide one. It's this. Love is the doctrine of this church. Love is the doctrine of love is the doctrine of this church. Love is the doctrine. The quest of the truth is in its sacrament. There it is. Great. And service is its prayer. So when you look at this covenant, you notice, many of us notice the word God. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. It was a covenant with God and one another, including sibling congregations based on Christian principles. It talked about how we would take care of one another, and at that time, the sibling congregations, and this was in northeast United States. But I want you to notice something. Notice what comes first in that last line. With each other and with God. So this is old. This is a very old covenant. Today, our UU covenants are unique and varied and do not center on God or on any deity. They do speak to how we will be in relationship with one another. The version devised by Reverend James Villa-Blake is widely used today as a base for congregational covenants, and there it is. Thank you, Joe. And Allison alluded to it earlier. I like this one. In 1894, the Unitarian Church of Evanston, Illinois, adopted the covenant, this covenant, which can be found in our hymn book. It's Singing the Living Tradition number 473. Our neighborhood covenant comes from our mission statement, but is different, and we saw it earlier. And what do we mean by, this is our neighborhood covenant, What do we mean by covenant today? A UU covenant in 2023 still focuses on relationship. But it is not a definition of relationship. Rather, it is the framework for our relating. Some covenants are quite specific, and I like the one, I like our covenants. I was very impressed with the covenant that the choir put together. It's very specific. I'm impressed with the specificity of the board covenant and other covenants here at Neighborhood. I was really impressed that the choir, at its retreat, I believe, updated the covenant and went over it. Is that right? Yeah. Good work.
Hard work.
And it was hard work. They did it. They took the time. A covenant leaves room for change. It is humble toward evolution. It claims, I will abide with you in this common endeavor, be present best as I can in our becoming. This calls for a level of trust, for courage and sacrifice that needs to be nurtured, renewed, and affirmed on a regular basis. So covenant is never static. It doesn't have to stay the same. One definition of covenanting is the process of members learning to live together in loving or supportive relationships, or what we sometimes call right relations. And the next slide, the Commission on Appraisal, 2020, the annual report. Sometimes when I see a commission, I think, pass. I'm not going to go into all the details, but when I look at it, I really find it meaningful. I find many meaningful pieces in this work. A covenant is a mutual sacred promise between individuals or groups to stay in relationship, care about each other, and to work together in good faith. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we seek to raise the we above the I. We seek to raise the we above the I, the community above the individual. It wasn't always like that. As seekers, we willingly choose to love each other and to stay in relationship over and over, again and again. In this way, we may break promises, but leaning into the transformational power of our faith, we begin again in love. We make mistakes. No single concept, and Joe, if you could show the slide that, thank you. We'll go into that next. No single concept is more important in our faith understanding than being in covenant. Not everyone would agree with that. But I'm saying that today from my own perspective. It is the core of our identity. It is the foundation of our governance structures at all levels, the base of our bylaws and congregational polity. It's what our committee bylaws will be working from. Covenant is often conflated with mission. Congregations sometimes combine mission and covenant. It can be done. Others keep them separate. We have kept ours separate. They are different. And a point, going to this slide, this is Reverend Alice Blair Wesley. And to say she was an expert on covenantal theology is not explaining the fullness of her work. She's a theologian who explains the differences in this way. So if you look at the top, vision is our dream, our vow with the universe. It's the larger. And then we go to mission, our mission, the mission for our congregation, who we are and why we exist. Then we go to covenant. How are we in relationship? Can you see the difference there? And then we shared ministry goals. Together in ministry we will. And then the mission objectives, specific, measurable strategies. But mission and covenant. Covenant, how we are in relationship. The term may have originated in Scripture, but it is not a uniquely religious arrangement found only in Scripture. We hear the word a lot, and when we go through old texts and Old Testament, nor is it mere and on the Hebrew Scriptures, nor is it merely a contract. It is not a contract. A contract is based on laws that are for which we are accountable. A covenant is based on love and reconciliation, not on laws. Come, even if you have broken your vows 100 times, come, yet again come. Living with a covenant or having a living covenant means we are most human when we bind ourselves in relationships to one another. But not just any relationships. Relationships of trust, mutual accountability, and continual return, forgiveness, trust. So while we want to be authentic to our individual selves, and that's important, true to our own nature, we also need to be connected with one another. We are more ourselves, more human, when we make commitments to one another. We start with a personal commitment to ourselves, but we go beyond that. We live with multiple covenants at all the time. Some people have many covenants within their congregations, and some are aware of only one, beautifully written and said during worship. But today we had a beautiful example of covenant, didn't we? With our SLC. That is a prime example of covenant, and it was so beautifully done. Thank you, Allison, for your leadership in that. And so we had that, and last week I was so touched when Jillian Newcomb, who was our service weaver, got up and set a prime example by offering Neighborhood her own carefully crafted, heart-centered, loving covenant statement. We see the chest here, the covenant chest. We can all do that, and she showed us how. I was inspired, and I have begun to write my own covenant for this congregation. People also have covenants that they created outside of congregational life. Wedding vows would be an example. Covenants we make with our children. We can also live a covenantal life without having written anything down or said at all. We may not even call them covenants, but we have them in our lives. Promises, vows, pledges. Examples. When we recite the eight principles, we begin by saying, we covenant to affirm. We covenant to affirm. This is a denominational covenant, the overarching. Another overarching is our covenant, our congregational covenant. And we have one here at Neighborhood. There are board covenants. We have one. Choir covenants, various committee covenants. Covenants of right relations. Religious education covenants, which our children grow up reciting. Marriage vows and ordination vows. And I'll tell you, before I made a vow, my public vow to be a minister, I made a vow to Dr. Wilburn Hayden, to be his loving spouse. That was my first not my first public vow. The first one would have been confirmation as a Catholic at age 10. And then there were other vows made. But my primary vows have been to my partner and to my congregation. And to be a minister who upholds her vows. There are family covenants. We're in the midst of doing one with our family. Now that we are not 3, but 4, my son has a partner and named Bonnie, and we love her. It's also a covenant with self. And we have covenants with the earth, covenants to care for the earth. Unitarian Universalists are a covenantal, not a creedal faith. There is no belief requirement or creed that you have to say to join us in community, even though there are beliefs that we would consider to be outside the boundaries of our faith. There is, however, a requirement for how we wish to be together, treat each other, and do the work of beloved community, building beloved community together. Our covenants are the way in which we practice our faith together, and they are aspirational descriptions of how we want to be in the world. Aspirational. We don't always hit the mark. I know I don't. Our covenants are also ways of norming the culture of our congregations toward love, inclusivity, and kindness. When a person joins a Unitarian Universalist congregation, they sign a membership book and participate in a joining ritual. What they are actually doing is agreeing to the covenant of the congregation and agreeing to consensually enter into this body, this holy promise about how we will be together and co-create Unitarian Universalism. The 3 premises that a new member is required to abide by are the principles, the mission statement, and the covenant. Unitarian Universalists are a covenantal people. Our faith tradition believes in the power and possibility of covenant, a set of shared promises, agreements, and understandings that hold us together. But what happens when it's broken? How does a vision of covenant hold together when we disagree, when we quarrel, when we lose our way? In the words of Reverend Jean Harrison Nuejar, and in a book called Fluent in Faith, she says, a rich component of covenant is the gift of forgiveness. To make promises calls forth the best of us, but we are human and we make mistakes. Promises get broken. So we try again. We do our best. Covenantal faith does not ask us to be perfect. It asks us to look at our mistakes and shortcomings and to try earnestly to correct them. As human beings, we fail at our commitments, we forget, we don't check in, we don't call. We break our vows repeatedly. The people who you care about are going to disappoint you, and you're going to disappoint them, and we even hurt each other. This community will disappoint you. Life is lived in both failure and success. A covenant helps us to find our way back. There are many times in this community life where I have had to apologize to someone, and I have been forgiven. Living with covenant entreats us to find ways to reconnect and to keep going, so we repair relationships even in disappointment and sorrow and find a way forward together. Being in covenant asks us to work through heartbreak and to reconnect, to keep on being in relationship and take care of each other, to remember that we are all in this together, not always an easy task. Over the next few weeks, please consider one of some of these questions. The goal of these questions is not to help you analyze what covenant means in the abstract or to become an expert on covenant, but to figure out what being part of a community of covenant means for you and your daily life. Shameless adult ed plug. So we will be talking about some of these concepts in building your own theology, and that's and there's information at the back. What is the most life-giving promise or commitment that you've made? Think about it. Who or what was the commitment to? How did it change your life? Have you ever made a covenant with the sacred, with the earth? What promises have you made to the earth or to the universe? To your spouse, to your partner, to your children, to your friends, to your family? What would keep you from making a covenant? As a member of this congregation, what commitment did you make when you joined, if you did have joined? You probably had a sense of what you'd get, but were you clear about what you promised to give? In conclusion, we sometimes say it is the absence of creed that defines us. We define ourselves in the negative. The absence of creed is often put first as who we are as Unitarian Universalists. We say deeds, not creeds. But those deeds are based on something. They're based on covenant. In the words of Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, who was the last UUA president, recently retired from that position, it is covenant that brings us out of isolation, covenant that brings us out of our selfish concerns, out of individualism, to join ourselves to something greater, to become a part of a community that is working to practice love, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and wisdom together, to find better ways to live our lives and live in this world. Come, whoever you are. Come, even if you have broken your vow 100 times, come, yet again come.
Now is the time for our offertory. Sharing of ourselves is part of every faith. Volunteer efforts are essential, but salaries are paid and programs created by your contributions. There are many ways for the members of the neighborhood community to give. Many of us contribute by pre-authorized transfers. In all ways, I ask you to be generous. The greeters will pass the baskets for those who choose to make contributions that way, while Susanne and I offer the song, I Choose You. Greeters, please bring the baskets forward when our song has ended.
To your own beloved community, and reframed the text to be sung in service to choose each other, to choose our choose our own communities. Ready, Ellie? I choose you this day to love and confide in. I choose you this day to hold on to and reach out from. I choose you. I choose you. to believe in and share with, to learn from and grow with. I choose you this day to love and confide in. I choose you this day to hold on to and reach out from. I choose you. I choose you. I choose. I choose you. I choose you this day. I choose you. I choose you. I choose you this day to give you my heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. I choose.
If you have found love and acceptance here, if you have found home here, if you have known kindred spirits here, let this offering be a token of gratitude for our common life as we build the common good.
Please rise in spirit to sing our final song this morning, hymn number 1028, The Fire of Commitment.
Abundance
invite Nancy to come forward and you to sing with us as we extinguish our chalice. Although our chalice has been darkened, we hold the fire within our own hearts. Please take your neighbor's hand or touch their shoulder or touch elbows, connecting you physically as we have spiritually. And after our closing blessing, perhaps you can also share a namaste for our fellow congregants on Zoom. And Pat is going to share our closing blessing.
Joe, would it be possible to bring up that slide that we had earlier, the brown one with the covenant? Thank you. Sorry. It's going back. We'll use that as our closing. There it is. Oh, you are the... Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Covenant is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We covenant as a community, as a congregation. The service is ended. Go in peace. Amen.